Hi, friends. Welcome to Coffee Break with Dr. Michele Alignay. It's another morning to have coffee, sit down, and reflect on real life matters. And this morning, we're going to talk about the part two of our discussion the other day, and that is the real deal in adulting. Bakit ba natin kailangan pag-usapan itong pagiging adults? We adults have too much the past few months. We had so many things in our plate, ang daming nangyari sa atin, to the point that didn't you realize how it has already changed us? It may have crushed us, or it has challenged us. Pero sana, whatever we're gonna go through, kung ano man yung pagdaanan natin, sana sa maayos. Sana we are better than how we were when we entered the longest lockdown in the world. Okay, and that is here with me in the country. So this morning, let's talk about the real deal. I'm sorry. The real deal in adulting. So, friends, if you have questions, if you have comments on what we're going to talk about, I will try my very best to answer. Pero, kung meron din kayong, I will allow also, uh, this will be our chance to Q&A about how I personally went through those process. It's a time to be, sabi nga ng iba, it's a time to be vulnerable, but not really. But this morning, so get your coffee. I would like to ask you, what's the thing that struck you on our last discussion? For those who are, regular in our coffee break sessions, ating mga coffee breaker friends, who among you have a hugot? Who among you got struck with something that we discussed the other day? Can you put that in the comment section? Two months lang, 6 months na ang adulting. 6 months na pa magiging adult? Yeah, pwede. So wherever you are. So what's the real deal in adulting? I'm just checking the people here in our feed. So let me reflect with you. Let me walk through with you this morning some points from one of my favorite one of my favorite family therapists in the name Virginia Satir. Well, these are the models that I teach sometimes, but I would like us to understand. I'll borrow the concepts that she has in order for us to have a meaty and meaningful discussion. So I'm checking your comments. Sabi ni, ay, favorite ko yan. Favorite ko yan, Kath. Not all in life have templates. It's correct. Hindi lahat ibibigay sa atin yung formula. Well, ibibigay sa atin yung formula, pero yung solution, how to reach the formula, di ba wala? So, ayan. Pero hindi lahat talaga may formula. Sometimes, di ba, you have to figure out, many times in life, you have to figure out the X and the why and even the results. So tell me about your hugot. Tell me about what you've learned the other day so that we can start the ball rolling. So get your coffee. So let's talk about the real deal in adulting. As I said the last time, yung the word adulting, it's a new term. It's a slang term. We don't have that in human developmental psychology books. So it's a new word coined by maybe the millennials, the young ones here. Pero at the past month, have you ever considered the adult self? Meaning, ako, ikaw, yung buo mong pagkatao bilang isang adult. Kasi posibleng nagbago na eh. Nagbago na yan. As Joy learned, wisdom comes when we become accountable for the life we've created for ourselves. I like that. Wisdom comes when we become accountable for the life we've created for ourselves. Diba? Hindi naman hinahanap yung wisdom. It's a result of a very thoughtful process. So, Kayeng, I'll take what you said. Own up to your mistakes. Yes, that's being responsible. That's being accountable. Maybe not just mistakes, because some of us hindi naman mistakes eh. But own up to your mess, own up to your limits, own up to the things that you're supposed to be doing but you did not do. So there you go. So you can own up to a lot of things. I'll walk through with you when we say the self, that's the core of who we are, di ba? The self, it's that person. Sabi nga, it's the being. It's us, yung pagkatao natin. Look at myself. Pwede natin paghiwalayin yan. So this morning, we're going to separate looking at the self as as a third person. You know, one of the most effective way to really see yourself is to look at it in the third person objective. Obserbahan niyo yung sarili niyo. And the self within the core, yung sa Tagalog, I like the term, pagkatao. Yung pagkatao natin, kung sino tayo, yung pagkatao natin, it has a lot of experiences. And whatever happens in life, whatever happens sa atin, let's just reflect these past 6 months. Hindi ba, we are working on a specific context. Most of us have a specific context. Pero meron tayong common context. If you are here in the Philippines, we are all in quarantine. So yan yung common context natin. The global context is that we are all bracing through a pandemic. But we have specific context. And that self, hindi, kahit na it's crazy out there, iba-iba ang nagiging impact ng isang crisis sa bawat tao because of the specific context. And we say the specific context, anong meron ka sa bahay mo? Anong meron ka sa trabaho mo? Anong meron ka sa sarili mo? So, it becomes, it's layer after layer after layer. And at the core of everything, the universal, the global, the national system, it's actually affecting the self. Hindi niyo napansin yon whenever you're browsing through news. It's you a reaction to it. It's enough to tell us that we're really affected by our circumstances. The experience happens in a specific context, and then the self, tayo, ito. Can you hold on to your chest while you're here listening to me? Tayo, the self affects our external behavior. So, kung tayo naapektuhan ng maraming bagay sa labas natin, but that self affect how we externally manifest our behavior. The context nung sa labas, kung ano nangyayari sa paligid natin, affects the self. Marami tayong mga bagay na naapektuhan tayo. Health, work from home situation, just being cooped up at home, sabi nga nila, cabin fever. So, all this affects us. But, the self is also affecting yung kung anong nangyayari inside, what's churning there, what's boiling inside. It's actually affecting our external behavior, kung ano yung pinapakita natin. So, we have to reflect, ano nga bang pinapakita natin sa iba? Paano nga ako nabubuo? And then, I would like us to reflect about the 6 areas of Virginia Satir's growth model. O, di ba? It's beautiful because it's called growth. And we, as I think I've mentioned many times here in Coffee Break, we just don't go through, but we grow through this crisis. And I quote that from one of the first masses that I attended online, from Father Joel Hasson. So we grow through, not just go through this crisis. And that is why it's very fitting to talk about these things using Satir's growth model. And that's what I'm going to look. So, that self, yung pagkatao natin, hindi nyo ba napansin? We have what we call the first layer of the self is our yearnings. Can you say that with me? Can you type that? Yearnings. What are the yearnings? What are yearnings, friends? I think we all know that. It's not, we cannot deny, we all have desires. We yearn for 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 the basic things actually. Yearnings are universal. It's inherent to the human system. And these yearnings are actually about our longing to be loved, longing to be accepted, longing to feel safe and validated. Diba? So there's a longing for us to have personal connections. There's a longing for us to feel that we belong to a family. So pag yun pa lang nagkaroon ng struggle, struggle. There's a bigger problem. But aside from yearnings, that adult self, so that yearning, Satya refers to it as universal. Lahat tayo meron yan. It's like, it's a given. Okay? So, yearnings, it's universal. Yearnings are our inner, the desires of, actually, it's not the desires of the heart because these yearnings, they're universal. They're unconsciously inherent in the human system. They're unconsciously in our heart. If you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom is food, clothing, and shelter, and then the next level is that belongingness. And this is exactly that. We need to belong. So going to the other theories that said yearnings, hindi ito yung the desires of our heart because iba yon. I desire peace. Well, they are universal. They are universal. But then we, of course, we want the yearning to be safe, the yearning to live in a virus-free world. That's universal. So long to be loved, accepted, validated, and how are you with this? I think we all have this and they're given. But what about the next layer? The next layer is what we call expectations. What are expectations? Expecting other people. Ito, one of the biggest example of expectation. And these are relative, meaning it's subjective to us. Kanya-kanya tayo na expectations. Some people, if we have expectations, these are, as I said, subjective, meaning what's an example? Expecting other people to provide for us. The external world meeting our needs. Ayan, that's another kind of expectation. Expectations are the internal yearnings that are not universal, but very particular to us, but we feel entitled that the external world will meet our needs. Dependent, okay, these expectations, we tend to depend heavily on others for survival. Kaya hindi nyo ba napansin, as adults, we get crushed if the people, maybe the organizations, and even the work that we've been depending on cannot supply what we expect. Are you getting me? Kaya it's hard when we feel that a person I love failed me because he did not supply to me what I need. So, ang challenge ng pagiging adult is to, yes, we have yearnings. We may have expectations, but we don't exactly depend on other people for everything we need. You don't depend, honestly, we don't automatically depend everything to our husband, to our kids. We don't depend on other people to affirm us, to take note of us. 'Di ba? Kaya nga may tinatawag na realistic expectations. Or there's another term that we can reflect on, um, failed expectation, meaning hindi na-meet yung pangangailangan natin at nasaan tayo doon. How are you with expectations? Have anyone ever failed you? So if we keep depending on, for example, if we keep depending on our political system to supply the needs, eh bakit sa ibang country ganito? Sa atin hindi nangyayari yan. Then we are forever depending on what other people what other people will do for us. We become actually passive in our circumstances. That's too adult, right? And it's something that we need to deal with. Hindi ba masama ba, hindi, ang tanong nga dyan, masama bang mag-expect? What I've learned along the way, hindi masamang mag-expect kasi parte ng buhay yan. Pero we don't depend on that expectation alone to build us, to make us. Kasi posibleng hindi maibigay because it's not in our control. That's why many of us get frustrated. Many of us, you know, many of us get so stressed trying to control because they're expecting other people to do what they want to do. We have a tendency that I thought alam nila, pero hindi naman pala. Yes, because we have a tendency to just expect. But not all people are created equal and not all people are programmed the same way. Kahit nakasama mo pa yan sa bahay, kahit pamilya mo pa yan, it's really, really difficult to keep expecting. So, if that self is solely, as I said, it's not wrong to expect, but we, if are solely dependent on our expectations that other people, the external circumstances, with fulfill our needs, that, I thought there's a system running already. Hindi ba dapat ganito, dapat ganyan? Yes, those are really expectations because you are expecting some standards, you are expecting a return favor, you are expecting that people would be responsible for themselves na hindi pala, you are expecting that the system would turn out the way that you hope it would, and then everything would fail, and then that causes a lot of stress. Friends, I would like to ask you, have you ever been a victim of your own expectations? What I mean by that, na expect ka naman ng expect, tapos ikaw rin naman yung na-stress with all the expectations that you have. Have you ever been in that situation? If yes, say yes. Say yes or press hard kung kayo mismo ay napunta sa ganyang sitwasyon. And at the end of it all, parang kasalanan mo pang nag-expect ka. Well, it really happens. Why? Maybe you have put maybe half of yourself in that expectation and you did not do anything but expect. And that's another layer. Okay? Next one. So that's second. Second pa lang, no, ang laman. That second one, the third layer of the self. Um, the first one is yearning. The second is expectation. Ayan, may mga sumasagot na yes. May sumasagot na yes. So, that's why it's called realistic expectation. Kakayanin ba? At what level of expectation can you just give so that you would not be crushed in the end? Ayan, hanggang saan mo kayang mag-expect? Okay? That's the key. And I think that's an adult wisdom. That's a very adult wisdom na okay lang mag-expect, but I don't put all my eggs in one basket. I would not expect them to return the favor. If they do something, and then it's a bonus, right? That's another way of looking at it. So the third one, perceptions. Mga pananaw, beliefs, attitudes, values, and picture that we have created. These perceptions, it's inherent. The self is actually bounded. Our sense of self is bounded actually by our perception. Why? This perception are our internal programming. We've been programmed on these things. Simula maliit tayo, we are programmed to look at religion this in this manner. We've programmed to look at life in this manner. And it's a product of how we've been raised. So perception is very tricky, but another layer of how we are is perception. And if you realize, perception also affects the whole of us, even our expectations, even our emotion, even our coping, and even the way we deal with life. It's just not about anong pananaw mo sa buhay, pero honestly, lahat ng ginagawa natin nang galing yan sa isang perception. So tayo as adults, if we do not know how to check if the perceptions that we have, kung yung mga pananaw ba natin ay healthy. I'm not saying that some perceptions are wrong, but I think I've always said this here in Coffee Break, that there are just some perceptions that are not applicable anymore. Some perceptions, they are not healthy. Some perceptions, they're not helpful at the given moment. And some perceptions, they need to be left in our, 20s. I'll give you an example of perception. Halimbawa, friends forever. Yan. Common yan. Kailangan pag friends mo, talaga you stick with them. But there are just some friendships that you need to let go. Because it's not wrong, but it's no longer healthy. Hindi, wala namang masama, wala namang ginawang masama. Pero, hindi lang eh. Toxic ba? It's just not making me grow. I am not saying that it's wrong to cut ties. I'm not telling you to cut ties. But maybe you just put a comfortable distance. That's another more adult way of looking at it. Sometimes we just need to leave some perception and we have to check our perceptions. Nakakatulong pa ba? For example, another one that I always share with you. Now, yung standard sa mga anak sa school? Do we expect them to excel? As in talagang dapat tama lahat ng sagot? Pero nasistress na yung bata to the point that tayo rin, feeling natin naka-enroll. That's another perceptions that we have to let go of. So, you can, perceptions, kaya nga, another author said, it's Pamela Hayes, I think, that says that the most of our stressors comes from our thoughts. Many of the stressors in our life are product of our thought patterns, and that thoughts, it's in our perception sa paano natin ginahandle. Kaya if you would realize how am I discussing things with you, I discuss with you concepts. Pero kayo ang maghihimay niyan sa buhay niyo. Kayo yung kayo yung titingin, applicable ba 'to sa'kin? Alin dito? Kasi ito yung sinasabi ko, walang template lahat. There's no one size fits all. Kaya marami nasa-stuck sa perception. Bakit? Ang dami mong hinawakan. Ito, I've seen this with young adults, ha. We have too many ideals. In our 20s, that's a reality. There's too many ideals. Why? Because we're looking at life in rose-colored glasses. So, ang dami nating ideals until we come, and then comes with that perception is our expectations about life na pag nagtrabaho, ganito, and then at the end of the day, or when circumstances becomes difficult, we realize, bakit gano'n? Bakit iba yung ini-expect ko? Bakit iba yung tingin ko? And then, we feel, if we have realized na ganito pala talagang maging adult, if we learn the lesson and maybe put that perception down or the expectations, okay, we've learned the lessons, okay, ililimit ko lang expectation ko dito. Itong perception na to, hindi pala nakakatulong. Mahirap pala talagang kumita ng pera. Mahirap maghanap ng trabaho na gusto mo talaga. Mahirap i-align yung mission sa other sound, make it sound so easy. Mahirap i-align yung mission doon sa vocation. So if we think that it's so quick and then stressful events happen, we can be crushed. So there's a matter of using our adult wisdom there, because this perception needs to be validated again, needs to be rechecked. Nakakatulong pa ba? Can you put that? Some perception needs to be revisited. Revisit your perception. Kumbaga, check the perception. Ano ba yung tingin nyo? Kaya people will ask me, tama ba? I throw the question back. Ikaw, sa tingin mo, tama ba? Kasi sa akin, posibleng mali. Baka pwede kitang, pero baka sa tingin mo, I am moralizing things. Kasi our perception also affects our morals, and our perception affects the values. So, ganun kalaki yung value ng perception. So, if you like to think of it as adults, nung maliit tayo, hindi natin yan iniisip. Pero ang adult life is full of perception, and the way we can only do a healthy adulting is that we know how to sift and sort and sift and sort. Can you say that with me? Sift and sort your perception. Yung sift, alam mo yung parang pag nagbe-bake is you sift it and then you sort it. Pwedeng may na-sift ka na, okay, hindi na kailangan yung iba. Iwanan na yan sa 20s. Meron mga bagay, iiwanan mo na rin sa 30s. Alam niyo kung bakit? Pag na-sort mo na yan, when we become more adults, ayaw na natin ng excess baggage. Ibig sabihin, gusto nating tumandang may pinagkatandaan. Yun yung key doon. Kasi ayaw nating, we are old, we are aging, pero ang bigat natin, ang dami nating dalang excess baggage. Yung ito na lang, I think I've mentioned this so many times, that if we will be in a party and we are all adults, older adults, I said, we are the titas, the concrete titas, would you think you are the type of person that your young family members would be excited to see and experience, or you would be the kind of person that they would hide from? So check yourself, ano dun yung balak mo? So ngayon pa lang, whatever stage you are, itong while we are in quarantine, it's very good to sift and sort through our perception, because some may not be applicable at our given our circumstances. Some maybe applicable, maybe not now. So, tago mo muna hindi kailangan. Lagay mo lang dyan. Hindi ko pero meron naman kailangan talaga. This is becoming toxic. This is becoming irrational already. I need to dispose. So there are things we dispose. There are things that we just defer. And there are things that we just do. And there are things that we really deliberately work on, diba? So we ditch, we defer, and then we do, and then we deliberately work on. Ito talaga yung hawak ko. So hindi ko sinasabi kung ano, try to think about it. Anong meron sa inyo? Anong perception sa buhay niyo ang nakakatulong ngayon? I would like to ask you that, friends. Can you put there in the comment section, what healthy perception ang nakakatulong sa inyo ngayon? Okay, napapakapi ako. Grabe, 3 pa lang, 6 to. Number 4, emotion. Ayan, emotion. Emotion are actually a product of our past. It's a product of how we reacted before, like your fear, like anxieties. Hindi yan pwedeng ngayon lang. It's triggered by an external event, but it actually has a programming that is connected to our past, that is connected to a fear, that's connected to a perception. So, konektado yan. And then, it's also emotions, the bigger emotion, it's accumulated feeling. Yung parang naiinis, hanggang sa galit na. Ayan. And then, it's also, you have to also check how do you feel about your feelings? As an adult, do you integrate your feeling? I think I have said that many, many times that we have to check because our thinking, our perceptions actually affects our emotions. Yung tingin natin sa sitwasyon. For example, this crisis, how do we look at this situation? Is it really, it's really a big blow. It's really a big burden. Or are we looking at it? It may be a blessing. So looking at it, if we look at it as a blessing, and then maybe the emotion there is we're more at peace, we're more accepting, we become peaceful. But if it's a burden, ang tingin natin sa sitwasyon ngayon, burden, ang emosyon na nakikreate sa atin, because it's a burden, ano ba yung burden? Pabigat. So lahat ng mangyari sa atin, hindi tayo makalabas because of something, feeling natin, we're so burdened with everything. And that creates a multitude of feelings. Nagsasama-sama na. So, diba, it starts with perception. And I think I've mentioned this here in Coffee Break. One mark of an adult is that they're able to integrate, put together their emotions and their perception. Hindi magkahiwalay. Magkakampi yan. Kaya ito yung saying what you mean and meaning what you say. So, you look at other people, kita mo rin yung they're not too integrated. Kita mo rin yung irrational yung thinking, tapos yung sinasabi, parang, duh, this is really thinking. Is that real? Maybe because they have created irrational truths. Yung binago na nila kung ano yung pananaw nila para basehan ang kanilang realidad. Iba na yung reality nila. Meron na silang virtual reality of their own. But looking at it, that's why an adult's emotional life is very critical. And if we, in our childhood, yung emotion natin, it's just there, alam mo yon, it just indicates that, mommy, I need something. Pag umiyak tayo, tinopak, bakit? Ganun lang. Pero as adults, we are expected to handle ourselves better. Kung umiyak ka, alam nyo minsan sabihin ng may mga kachat akong friends, naiiyak ako, minsan sinasabi ko, o sige, umiyak ka muna, tapos mag-usap tayo. And then I even tell that to my kids. Are you upset? Okay, you cry, and then later, let's talk. Because it's really critical for us to express and to acknowledge and to express our emotions because that's a mark of a healthy adult. Tandaan natin, pag hindi natin na-express ng maayos yung emosyon, if we don't know how to access our emotion, and then it becomes sickness in our bodies. So we have to have that, and you don't blame other people for your emotions because our emotions are ours. That's one mark of adulting. We own the emotion. We take charge of ourselves through the emotions that is being created in us. So that emotion, that will tell us what we need. And that will also make us, in a better state. So that's the fourth. So the first one is yearnings. Second is expectation. The third, it's perception. The fourth is emotion. I like to capture this. Joy, thank you for this. You said it's critical to express and acknowledge our emotions. Yes, and it's critical to do it in a healthy and appropriate manner, especially as adults. As I said last time, where is Kat? Kat, are you still here? Sabi ni Kat, sabi niya, hindi na nagtotopak. Yes, kasi kung tayo ay nagtotopak the way kids do, that's not a healthy adulthood. That's not healthy for us. So, the other one is coping. I think many of you have learned coping, coping, coping. And Virginia Satir, one of the most favorite quote that I always use from her, she said that problems are not the problem, coping is the problem. And if you look at it, this crisis situation, it's not the problem in itself. The way we are coping with it, it's the problem. Kita natin ngayon, sino talaga yung, sorry, kailangan ko to sabihin, kita mo ngayon kung sino yung may inner resiliency, kita mo ngayon kung sino yung may grit, kita mo ngayon kung sino yung babaksak. Kita mo ngayon kung sino yung marunong tumayo sa buhay. It's critical. Coping, actually, some people, when we say coping, how are you coping? Yung isang context ng coping, that is what I'm going to talk about. It's the survival stance. We cope para makasurvive. And then, di ba when we're stressed, what's our initial reaction? Di ba? Parang, nagagalit agad tayo or we become defensive. That's coping because we want to protect the self. But coping is actually our stances or solutions in order for us to survive. It's actually the way we cope is actually the thermometer. Satir said it's the thermometer for checking our self-esteem, and that's beautiful. Coping is the thermometer for checking our self-esteem. Ang ganda nito. Bakit? For example, ngayong pandemic, may nawalan ng trabaho, may nag-iba yung purpose, may nahirapan sa buhay. Kita mo ngayon kung paano mag-cope ang tao. Korean novela ba? Puro ba Facebook? Nagiging troll na siya? Puro lang ba siya social media? Anong ginagawa niya? Tinutulungan ba niya yung sarili niya or nagpapadala siya sa agos? Kita mo ngayon yung level of self-esteem. I've seen earlier is that some people are blaming the pandemic because kinuha mo yung kabuhayan namin. Kinuha mo yung buhay ko. Hello? Doon natin makikita saan nakakabit ang self-esteem, yung buong pagkatao at pagpapahalaga sa sarili ng tao. When we are coping well, ibig sabihin, it is likely that we have the healthy coping patterns because we feel that kahit anong mangyari, buo ako eh. Binuo ako ng Panginoon, binuo ako ng tadhana, binuo ako ng pagkakataon. Ganda, di ba? Binuo tayo ng Panginoon, pero hinubog din tayo ng pagkakataon. Binuo tayo ng Panginoon, hinubog tayo ng pagkakataon. That's our self-esteem. But if our self-esteem is connected to our titles, if our self-esteem is connected to the way we do things during the pre-pandemic. Nawalan ba ako ng purpose kasi hindi na ako makapagsalita in front of the microphone sa harap ng mga tao? Nawalan ba ako ng purpose kasi nawala yung trabaho ko, nawala yung position ko? Those are critical things. So here, kita mo rin kung sino yung reactive at may defensive stance. Kasi feeling nila, yung buo nilang buhay, the crisis situation crush them so hard. So if they are coping healthily, it is likely if we, here, friends, are coping healthy, wala akong magtatanong, wala akong nagre-react eh. If we are coping healthily, it might be just an indicator that we know ourselves. We know that we are beyond our work. We know that we are beyond our our lifestyle. Perfect example of coping. Yung iba, parang they cannot wait to get out of the country. They cannot wait to travel. Well, which is good. But if your purpose is connected to being just a traveler on your Instagrammable shots in your news feed that is all about your travel, if your worth is connected to that, and then how would you be now? That's critical. That is critical. Because we cannot, sabi ko nga, we cannot put our eggs in one basket. We need to define our self-esteem that we are loved, we are accepted, and we are our own person, despite of our work, despite of our lifestyle, even despite of beyond what we have or beyond what we don't have. And that is coping. And the last one, our behavior. Our behavior. Ngayon, alam nyo, ang nakita ko, friends, di ba nakita natin kung anong kulay ng tao? Yung sino talaga yung malalapitan, sino yung mapagbigay, sino yung galit na galit sa buhay, at sino naman yung sorry, minsan nakakatuwa lang na mag-social media to check the behavior of people. Well, I'm not assuming. It's just that siguro I have an inkling already because as a psychologist, ay hindi ko ginagamit yung position ko. Pero ginagamit ko lang yung maybe yung pananaw ko or yung tingin ko. Ano kaya pinagdadaanan nito? Ano kaya, tinan mo yung, sabi nga, tinan mo yung narratives niya, kung ano yung mga kwento niya, puro ganito. So, it speaks about, those things speaks about the behavior. Sabi nga, di ba, sa bibig na huhuli yung isda. Kaya mas mahisipag ako magtanong para makita ko ano talaga yung insight ng mga kausap ko. Diba? Behavior is the outcome of coping. It's the external manifestation of the person's inner world. Yun talaga yung yearnings niya, yun talaga yung inner world niya. So, kumbaga minsan nakikisasabihin niya hindi siya galit. Alam niyo yun? Hindi naman ako galit. Pero, galit naman pala talaga. Galit naman pala talaga. Okay? And then, behavior is the external manifestation also of our self-esteem. So, alam nyo, ito na lang, dito natin masasala, hindi lang kung sino yung kaibigan natin. Ito yung pagkakataon, pati tayo masasala. The condition of our hearts, the posture of our spirit, and actually, the condition of our self-esteem. In this crisis situation, naniniwala ako, doon lalabas ang gold will come out. Diamond will come out. Ang diamond, hindi automatic na nakikita, minimina, and it needs to be polished. So here, what I pray that each of us will attain is really, we learn to be healthy adults. Friends, if you have questions on how to be healthy adults, or how did we are doing adulting, please put the questions now. I have about 5 minutes more to engage with you. So self-esteem, this is a good check. In our next episode, I'll talk about this. Talk about where we are. Sinira ba tayo ng buhay? Or dahil sa difficulty sa buhay, nabuo tayo. Diba? Sometimes we need to be crushed to be able to be better again. Just to share with you, one of the things that nakita ko, that's why I call it na we're pandemic ready naman eh. Kasi marami na tayong pinagdaanan sa buhay. And it's just a matter of checking, align ba yung yearnings natin with our expectations? Align ba yung expectations natin with our perception? And our perception, how is it affecting our emotions? And our emotions, how is it affecting the way we are coping? And how it's affecting our behavior? Kasi hindi niyo ba napansin, they are layers. These are not separate concepts. These concepts interplay with one another. And in the adult life, we're supposed to integrate it all. So kaya pag sinasabi ng ibang tao na okay lang naman ako, pero makikita mo, iba yung expectations niya, then there's a problem there. So if your expectations is too high, but your reality and your coping, you're stuck. So paano mo ma-attain yan? So yun yung sinasabi ko, no, we need to marry. We need to integrate. We need to align those expectations with how we are coping. Kasi minsan hindi naman realistic. Ito expectations mo, that the world will, that the world will find cure immediately so that you can go to your destination and book vacation this coming Christmas. But that is not reasonable. And in between the expectation and your coping or your behavior, galit ka sa lahat, there's so much things happening and it tells us about how we are. Diba? It tells us how we are. Just to share with you, on Saturday, September 26th, it's my daughter's birthday. And she was born on a very difficult season for some of us. I gave birth to her on the Wrath of Ondoy. Okay, I was in the hospital giving birth. Our house, this house, it's fully submerged in flood. The house na nilinis namin, inayos namin para sa pagdating ng aking daughter, it was fully submerged in flood. It was a one-story house then. But what am I telling you? I went home in this house with nothing, almost nothing. Almost wala, wala. We have to start from scratch. That's why I'm telling you, I was able to reflect on that when the start of the ECQ. Kasi ngayon, may trabaho, may bagyo, may bagyo sa loob ng isip, hindi bagyo sa labas. Sometimes the pandemic is not actually outside. The pandemic is in the mind. Why? Because we cannot find a way to get out of this difficult situation. We cannot find a way to get out, to wring us out. Why? We are stuck in the pre-pandemic. We are stuck with our expectations. We are stuck with our perceptions that are not applicable. That's why it's affecting our emotion, our coping, and our behavior. So, if your behavior and your coping and your emotions are indicators already that you are not well, check your perception, check your expectations, check your yearnings. Go back to the inner world. It's connected. It's connected. Remember, friends, there is a purpose in this pandemic. And I pray that each of us will find a bigger purpose in ourselves. Hindi nawala yung purpose natin na bago lang. Minsan nag-expand pa. I'm reaching to you now. You've never reached me before. I have a website. It's not, hindi siya ganun karami ang interactions during the pre-pandemic. But now, I believe that it's reaching people to help. So the purpose has, it's still there. It's just that different yung application. And that's so adult. We accept that things, these are my favorite takes as adults, my favorite learning as adult. We accept that some things of our past are not applicable to our present. Okay? And another one of my favorite thoughts of that, we choose the better life. We choose the people we would like to grow with, and we choose how to make the life that we want. And lastly, one of my best take and believe as an adult, I take care of myself. I take care of myself. I will expect other people I may expect other people to look after me, but at the end of the day, it's a bonus if they do. But I will keep taking care of myself because that's the only way that I can help others better, especially my family. So, adulting, that's the real deal in adulting. We have layers of the self that's waiting to unfold. And we learn the wisdom not through what was taught to us, but how we really put it all together and we live through it. So don't forget, check your yearnings, check your expectations, check your perception, and then your emotion to be able to see your coping and your behavior. Because honestly, we hope that we adult well. We become healthier adults. We become loved and loving adults. That's it for Coffee Break. See you again next week. And I really would like to hear from you, friends. Do share this episode or please put in the comment section what you learned from this episode on Real Deal in Adulting. Let's all adult well so we can be the happy titas and tito that other people will look forward to seeing and being with. God bless you all. Thank you.